Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'd like to thank Anna for hosting and Mary for co-hosting and Tupta Norbeling for allowing this to happen. Thank you so much. I hope you're all well.
Very well, thank you, Venerable.
Great. So I want to also thank Venerable Dundrup, who is a monk living on the East Coast in the Washington, D.C. area. And he's been helping Tupta Norbeling, and he's been enormously supportive to me for this course because he has updated all of our materials. So there's some extra materials in there. And if one of the hosts is able to post that link to the course materials, we're going to use some of it today. And some of you have already downloaded it and have it, which is great. And I really want to thank Venerable Dundrup because we now have the other refuge prayer, the 4-line refuge prayer I mentioned last week. Just to point out a few of the items, the wish-fulfilling golden sun, which is some of the readings that I would recommend. And I will give you page numbers of what you might want to keep up with to direct you a little bit more in a little more focused way. And there now is, Venerable Dundrup found, it's wonderful, the FPMT prayer book, general prayer book, which has so many useful things in it. So that is free now to everyone. And he's updated that link as well. So that way, if we're looking for certain prayers, most probably they're in that prayer book and we'll be able to find it. So I want to just thank everybody from Tupta Norbeling. Thank you so much. And do you happen to have one of the hosts have that link to the materials that they could post in the chat? That would be great. We're going to start with one of those prayers. And I want to talk about the refuge prayer today. And while we're settling in and while they're going to bring up the link, let's take a moment now to just set our motivation. There it is. Thank you so much. And to really consider how establishing a daily practice is enormously helpful for your mind on this spiritual path. So if you can integrate some of these things, which I'm going to work our way through of how to integrate that into everyday life, so that hopefully you can get this rich, consistent practice going for yourself. And I'll put it this way, as best as you can. Nothing's perfect in samsara. So some days you're not going to have time, maybe. But the thing is, if it's going along as consistently as possible on most days, you're going to more easily fall back into that on a day when you have time. So please don't beat yourself up. If you missed it a day, you couldn't do this practice on a day, you didn't do any meditation. But the thing you're going to start to recognize is the days you miss it, maybe you're not as balanced or as spacious. So that's, again, an incentive, a motivator for us to think, I really want to do more of this practice. It works, by the way. It works to keeping a more balanced, happy mind. Okay, just take a moment if you'd like to close your eyes. Thinking about the benefit you can lend to your mind. But the real reason in this tradition is so that we can fully wake up. A fully awakened being in Sanskrit is called a Buddha. So if we can reach that place, we are then unlimited in how we can best help all living beings. So feel free if you'd like to include that in your motivation, that idea. And at the very least, directing your mind in a most positive way for our time together and all the events of the rest of your day. Okay, thank you. We are going to come back to some meditation. I am going to go into the document. If I can share my screen, it'll just be easier in case people can't open up the different documents. And I'm looking for the FPMT prayer book, which I do not see here. Is there any way to find that? Maybe I can find it in my own notes, but it doesn't seem to be uploaded here. So if you guys later can mention to Venerable Dondrup to please have that loaded up, that would be really helpful, but I will find it. I want to talk about this refuge prayer that's very significant for all of our practices. Just give me.
Venerable Amy, I have the daily practice with the refuge prayer ready to share.
Okay, I think it's the wrong refuge prayer. That's what I'm saying. So I'm looking for the one. Yeah, this is the one before the teachings in your daily prayers. And that's not the one I'm looking for. So I'm going to show you the difference. Let me just find this. Just bear with me 1 second. I will bring it up right here. Okay, thank you. That's the prayer. Okay, now, if this is the prayer, after you've taken refuge, I basically ask people to please recite this 4-line prayer 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening. This is a general, really nice refuge and bodhicitta prayer. You can bring it at any time in the practice, or some people just sit down and then this just starts rotating through their mind. This is normally the last prayer we say before you do all these teaching prayers with the traditional teaching. This is the last prayer we'll say with a slightly different 3rd line. I'm going to explain the difference. This prayer contains the entire path. Okay? I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by my merits of generosity and so forth. And sometimes it says, by my merits of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Okay, so let me explain that I take refuge until I'm enlightened. Okay, this is an urgency. I'm going to get all the way there, all the way to Buddhahood. That's enlightenment. Okay, and refuge is about shelter and protection. You know, when we talk about a refuge, your home may be a refuge for you. Your family and friends may be a refuge for you. This is where we tend to go when we have a problem, where we feel protected. Ultimately, with Buddhism, you want to be protected from more suffering. That's the real refuge. So when you look at all your temporal refuges, a lot of them offer temporary relief. But on the long picture, on the long haul, a lot of people in the pandemic, home all day, they took refuge in the refrigerator and eating, okay? There's people that take refuge in physical exercise. So, things get tense, whatever, they go out for a run. There's a problem, they go to streaming videos. They go to listening to music. We call family and friends when we have a problem. Now, the thing is, all of these situations lend a temporary relief, no question. There's no question. But do they actually solve the problem and give you some sort of basis to rebalance your mind and solve the problem? When you bring it back more to spiritual practice, that tends to be more sustaining in the long run. Okay, that's real refuge. And what we take refuge is 2nd line, in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. The Buddha we understand, but there's a historical Buddha, Shakyamuni, who lived 2,600 years ago. And that's a conventional Buddha jewel that you take refuge in, because they say taking refuge in the 3 jewels or the triple gem. So the Buddha jewel, the historical Buddha we know of, but the ultimate Buddha jewel is the omniscient mind. So if you're seeking support from someone you believe, like your guru, let's say, a particular teacher that you feel is all knowing, that's omniscience, all knowing, right? That seems to be a bigger support for your mind because they would know exactly what to advise you. They would know it all. Where your friends and family that you go to have limited knowledge. So they may be advising you based on their agenda, what they want for you, what they think, but it's limited. So that's the Buddha jewel. The Dharma jewel is the real refuge. The Dharma jewel is the real refuge. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha are all great refuges, but the Dharma jewel, conventionally, the teachings, the philosophy, okay? On a deeper level, ultimately, the teachings on emptiness. And the real Dharma jewel is having that direct perception of emptiness, the nature of reality. That's the thing that really protects you. The more you can read about emptiness, the more you can study, the more you can learn how to meditate effectively on emptiness and do it regularly. Slowly, I mean, this is what all the teachings were really designed for. The 84,000 discourses the Buddha gave, it was all to get you to emptiness. That's how important emptiness is. The real nature of reality, that things lack a concrete inherent nature, which is the way we're invested in everything, that it concretely, independently exists, especially me, myself, like that. So anything that threatens this is going to be a problem for me. But the more you understand emptiness, there's more of a fluidity, there's an interdependence. So we realize we're all connected. So if it's just about me being happy, that's not really good enough, because if they're not happy, I'm connected to them, whether I know them or not. So on some level, that wave of unhappiness is going to affect me as well. So that's the real refuge. And I have to say, sometimes on longer retreat for a few months, and your mind, you know, if I'm at Laudo, sometimes you're alone there, the mind can get kind of depressed. And then all I do is pick up one of my books on emptiness, read a chapter, reorients my mind. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, everything's okay now. Amazing. So that's the real refuge. And it says, and the Supreme Assembly. The Supreme Assembly refers to the Sangha. The Sangha. Who's the Sangha? It's your spiritual community. In this case, it may be our Zoom community when we join at a teaching. Great. On another level, Thupten Norbeling is hosting this. That's wonderful. On another level, a little bit more accurate, conventional Sangha level, are monks and nuns, those who are ordained and have monastic vows. And then the ultimate Sangha are those that have had a direct perception of emptiness, called Arya Sangha. Arya is referring to truth, meaning these are beings who have seen the truth directly. When they have a direct perception of emptiness, you've seen the truth directly. And then you have a title of Arya being, like that. So that's who we would take refuge in, beings that have actually seen the truth, because they can lead me there as well. And they can remind me and help balance my mind, help me to rebalance my mind about what's really important in life. You know, that some of the drama doesn't matter, but this stuff does matter, like that. So this is us kind of traversing through the Lam Rim in this prayer, that I take refuge because I get scared that things are going to be worse when I die. There's the lower scope motivation, okay? And I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha that takes me through that. And then understanding that I take refuge in them because when I suffer, that's the real protection. And that takes me through the middle scope. And that I can bring about an end to my suffering. And here's the third line, by my merits of generosity and so forth. And sometimes it'll say, by my merits of giving and other perfections, which I really like that line, that translation. And the reason is, generosity is one of the 6 perfections, okay? And generosity happens to be first because it's through your generous attitude that all the Dharma flows, that your Dharma practice is going to start increasing, being consistent and flourishing, like that. Generosity is also a cause of your own prosperity, things like that. We don't really get that in the West. You know, people are kind of oriented into their own, you know, this is mine, and you know, charity begins at home. You know, a lot of people are raised like that. And we don't really see that flow of that rotation of if I give a little bit, it'll come back to me. And I know at the centers, I've run a couple of centers, and when I got there, we really struggled financially. We had no money, very little money. And so normally when you don't have a lot of money, you think we can't make any offerings as a center. But I was dead, I was thinking about generosity. So even if we offered $10 to some charity or some FPMT project or a monk or nun or something, it came back to us like 100-fold. So we just kept making these little offerings when we could, with a nice little offering practice in our mind. And the centers just kept going like that. Exponentially, it would multiply, and we never really had an issue after a while with money. So by the merits of generosity, and this takes you into the higher scope motivation. When it talks about the 6 perfections, they're perfect behaviors that come into how we develop the totally open heart of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, again, a Sanskrit term for the enlightened attitude. Bodhi, enlightenment, citta is mind. The mind of enlightenment is I want to become a Buddha to benefit all living beings. And that encompasses great compassion. It encompasses cherishing others more than yourself. And when you have that perfect totality heart, and when you merge it with the right view of emptiness, then your behavior, that conduct becomes perfect. So there's 6 perfections: generosity, ethical balance, ethical behavior, patience, number 3, joyous effort, number 4, concentration and wisdom are the 6 perfections. And then you can study more about those specifically. And then the last line, may I become a Buddha. The reason I really want to do all this and practice these 3 scopes of the Lam Rim, lower capable being, middle capable being, higher capable being, is really for this purpose. Huge heart to become a Buddha, for the sole purpose. The goal is to benefit all living beings, transmigratory beings. What that means is sentient beings, sentient with a mind. And what it means, transmigratory, if you're a sentient being, you're cycling through samsara, turning. Samsara is to turn, and you're transmigrating, constantly migrating, okay? Buddhas don't migrate anymore, but sentient beings do. That's a distinction. You're either a sentient being, okay, or you're an enlightened being, or a being with very high realizations. They're not transmigrating through suffering the way we are, through samsara. That's why they say transmigratory. That means a suffering sentient being like us, migrating, turning through samsara. Refuge and bodhicitta prayer. Now, the big distinction is line 3, if you're having a formal teaching. So formal teachings, especially with Tibetan teachers, sometimes there's a lot of prayers we recite, and we're going to talk about the mandala offering later, and the last prayer, and they will often lead it, and you'll hear them suddenly put their hands like this, and you'll hear, Sangye Chodanzo Kicho Nam La Janchu Bardu Dad Ni Kyap Suchi. You'll hear them start like that. And that's this refuge and bodhicitta prayer. But in that case, the distinction is a slight change in the 3rd line. So instead of saying, by my merits of generosity and so forth, and if you look at the Tibetan phonetics, Daigijin Sogipe Sognamki, okay, it will say Daigijin So Gipe, Daigijin Ningipe, Ningipe. So the Sog is Ningipe, meaning by the practice of listening to the teachings, because I'm about to have a teaching, by the practice of listening to the teachings, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. But when you do it in your own practice, this is really the nice version to recite the one that is here on the screen, like that. So thank you so much for turning up with that. Let's do this. I'm sorry, can we just show that one more time? Sorry about that, because let's do it 3 times. So we're going to do it once in the English, and then we're going to chant it twice in the Tibetan, in the phonetics, just so you can hear. Some of you are very familiar with this prayer. And really with feeling about what I was just mentioning. So you realize in your mind, like what happens is a lot of us have memorized this prayer. And the teaching comes, or you're sitting there on your cushion and you go, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and you're not even paying attention. So these prayers are really designed bringing my attention here right now, being present with these words. And if you can, in the back of your mind, just know, oh, lower capable being, middle capable being, higher scope, higher capable being. That's my whole path of the Lam Rim is right here in this prayer. With that intent of that goal to benefit all living beings, I know to do it best, I need to be a Buddha first. So I want to go through this prayer, acknowledging in the back of my mind, that's the whole path. And then I want to recite this prayer. I take refuge until I'm enlightened. Please join if you'd like. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. O Sangye Chodren Soki Chonam La Jan Shubardu Dagni Gyab Suchi Tagi Jin Sogi Pe Sonam Gi Drola Penchu Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chodren Soki Chonam La Jan Shubardu Dagni Gyab Suchi Tagi Jin Sogi Pe Sonam Gi Drola Penchu Sangye Druparjo. Thank you so much. I love explaining that prayer because so many times we say it and many people don't even know the significance of it. So it's a very significant prayer. Okay. So what I'd like to do, is it possible for me to share my screen right now? Okay, great. Thank you so much. You guys are great. Okay, I'm going to bring us back to the Shakyamuni Buddha practice with single-pointed concentration and a different refuge prayer that we do if we're trying to recite a number of recitations for what we call Nundro practice. And this is our preliminaries that we're trying to accomplish, 50,000 refuge or 100,000 refuge, or, when people are counting these 9 different practices of accumulating merit or purifying negativities. Really, if you're not that familiar with them, don't worry about it now, but I just want to explain why that's why it's a different refuge recitation. Some people do Nundro with that 4-line refuge recitation as well. We also use it like that. So I'm just exposing you to different prayers and things. I will say, if you're relatively new to this, and I know some of you have been at this for a while and you're refreshing your practice, fantastic. But if you're relatively new, patience, 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 okay? Because in Tibetan Buddhism, as you find, there's the 7 of this and the 3 of that and the 4 of that, and people go, well, I didn't understand, and then there's Nundro and Nungnes and preliminary this, and relax. The important thing is you relax and you start hearing, and that's why we repeat a lot, because you hear it again and you hear it again, and the third time you go, okay, I understand that prayer now. I know a little bit. Now I'm going to take on this prayer, okay? So this evolves over time. There's no competition. You're not in competition with anyone. It's about you and your mind. And slowly you want to add these things in with a good feeling, a good understanding, so it makes sense slowly. And what you're going to do is you're going to start to construct. So I'm going to set you up with, here's a really nice way to slowly work your way into it. And you figure out how you can find space for that in your life and how things can be condensed when you don't have time. But at least every day there's a little 10 minutes something. And when you have more time, maybe there's an hour or something. And then I had less time yesterday, I only did 40 minutes. But tomorrow I've got another hour. And actually I got an hour in the morning and I found an hour later in the day. So you're going to be building and knowing, like an accordion, this is the practice, is I've got more time right now and now I've got less time. And you're going to understand what, and then there's going to be things that you come to in a prayer book that you really love doing. And you're like, oh, it's this prayer, I like this. And then you're going to turn the page and go, well, I don't really resonate with that prayer. So how do we slowly fold in some things? Let's start with this practice, Shakyamuni Buddha, again, to just orient you. And let's say you're in your space, you found, and can I just ask a question right now to all of you? if you'll permit me, is, oh wait, let me stop the share for 1 second. I will bring us back. I just want to ask if there's any questions from last week, but another thing is, has everybody been able to figure out a place in their home where they're sitting, and are they struggling with that? Are they getting onto the cushion for 10 minutes, part of our homework to do some of these practices? Or here's another thing. Have you looked a little bit at what is preventing you from getting there? Any comments or anything like that? Anybody would like to say or ask, please? And I know people get shy and they feel embarrassed. Please, there's nothing embarrassing here, because for me, some of the most authentic people will say, I'm not doing anything. Like, just to talk, just to be honest with where you are. Please, Doris, how's it going?
Thank you, Venerable. It's going good. I live alone, so I can do whatever I want, wherever I want. My altar is here. My family is scattered across Canada, but there's a chance that my daughter might be moving back here next year. And I'm kind of not knowing whether they might be uncomfortable with my altar. What would you suggest? Should I move it?
Yes, that's a really good question. I'm sure a few of you have had questions. I had to take one statue down. Again, it's only about this high, because I had a couple visitors recently, 2 different times, and it's a tantric statue, and I didn't feel comfortable with them seeing. But I also have another altar in a closet, and I can shut the door. It's in my room, my closet. It's not a public closet where they're going to be hanging their clothes. So that way I just slid that door over, and then my private stuff is in there. Some people do that. And there have been occasions where a Dharma practitioner that I know will come and say, oh, can I see your altar? And if it's in the closet, and I have a more public one, so they see that. And then, but most people have one altar. So I think what you could do is, the first time they come over, if you want to keep it very simple, so they get used to seeing that you've got this place where you're doing your meditation. And I know a lot of people, not even Buddhists, that have a space like that, and and then they'll get used to it, and then you can slowly add things on if you like. Or maybe, is it time to let them know this is you? This is what you're doing, and they'll get used to it as well. So there's 2 ways you could balance that one. And
Yes,
some of the rest of you,
I'd love them to be more comfortable with my practice. I'm being very discreet with it, kind of be respectful, but I don't want to hide it,
Sure.
but I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. So in some ways I'm thinking, well, I hope they don't move here. And then in some ways I want them here, but
Yep.
This is me now.
I mean, I do think, and some of you may have also comments to add in, so if you do, but I'll give you an example. And I've mentioned this before, this might be an old story for some of you, but so when I would fly back from California, where I lived, to my parents in this house in Philadelphia, I was meditating. I kept my meditation going in this room. My back would be to the door, and the door doesn't really close or lock. It's just the way it was. They put it in, years after I left here, whatever. So my mother had a habit of just opening the door without knocking. And I'd be meditating, meaning my back was to her, and she knew what I was doing, but she didn't like it. She wasn't comfortable with it. And so she would just see me like that and say, what are you doing? Like, very abruptly, what are you doing? So what would happen is I would either respond, not turning around to engage her, but just say, I'm meditating now, I'll be downstairs in a half an hour. And if she continued to do it, I would ignore her, which wasn't very nice, but I just, it was a way to. So that would happen for the first few visits over the course of a couple years, but then I think she realized I was still me. And I would come in, and she also started to notice when I would visit, which would just be like a week. But when I got the meditation time in without being disturbed, I was in a much better mood than when she had disturbed me. So she really started to I didn't say anything. And fast forward 4 years later, I'm there visiting them, again, my parents, And my father's outside the door calling me, like calling my name. And I hear my mother come up to him and say to him, shh, she's meditating. And then they left the door. They didn't even open the door. So like she became my protector, like sanctifying the space for me, protecting that space for me, because she saw a value in just being around me and noticing how much happier I seemed, or how much, nicer to her, or whatever was going on, So again, you have to give it time to evolve, because in the beginning it's a little rattling, and there may be resistance. So again, you can find a balance where you keep it simple at first, and then as they get used to it, and you tell them slow. And I wouldn't march my Buddhism out there with people that aren't Buddhists. I would just explain, oh yeah, I like this. I'm trying some meditation. And then if they ask more, then you can say, but then I would just drop it. And then slowly they see that you're really doing well, and you're balanced, and you're happy. And then the next week, a little statue turns up on your altar. They may not even notice. So sometimes people do like that. Can try. Jenny, please.
Hello, Venerable.
Hello, Jenny.
Right, hello. I'm having a few problems with the space. I'll try and explain briefly. I had a lovely little room in my house. I live with my partner and our son. Our son is grown up. He's 32. He's a bit of a Buddhist as well. Anyway, I had a lovely room downstairs, rich with tankers, imagery. It was a real little refuge space for me where I could do all my practices, meditate, everything. I loved it. Last year, the ceiling fell down.
Oh.
It's an old house, the ceiling collapsed. Everything was covered in debris, all the lovely tankers, everything, right? So I cleared it out. I was away at the time when it happened at work. I came back, I cleared out the space. My husband and my son, basically my husband has not helped me at all. I've cleared out the rubble, but it is still not repaired because I'm waiting for my husband, my partner, to instigate this. It's his house and he has to start doing the ceiling or getting somebody to do it. And it's been over a year. So I cleaned up and packed up all my statues, my books, quite a library of books, into boxes as respectfully as possible, covered everything nicely. It's in the hallway. People have to pass it. I can't help it. I have nowhere else to put the stuff. So I have no altar. I have a bedroom that I share with my partner, which I'm in now, and my son has a bedroom. We have a dog as well, and we have a living space downstairs. But all these spaces are used by all of us. There is no privacy whatsoever, and I'm actually quite distressed about it. I have been for a while. In the mornings, I light a candle in the kitchen before anybody else gets up, if I possibly can, and I take refuge, and I do some prayers, some guru devotion,
so,
and then when yeah.
So does your son live with you?
When I can, yes, he does. Yeah,
He does.
yeah,
Okay,
he
there
does.
full time. Okay, so for now, what I would do is you may not have a space right now, but you can still sit down and try to sit down in the same place every day and just sit there without an altar is perfectly fine to do practice.
Yeah.
It's about you and your mind. So for the time being, the other thing you may want to do is, and sorry, this is harder, but put the pressure on your husband about this is really important to you and you need a space to sit and you really want to get that room fixed. How can you help him get the bids and get it together unless he's fixing it? Like it's been a year now and you really want to get this moving along. I know that can be hard for family dynamics, but
it's hard.
I would just explain the importance for you
of
having the importance for you of having that space for yourself to do what you need to do, and see if and maybe you set up a time with him. Like, could we discuss a time when this project is going to begin? Like, let's get it on the calendar now that this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Does that seem realistic?
yeah, um, yeah, I have tried, but I have to keep on trying because it's all I can do. My son is he's quite helpful. He's 32, so you know he's a grown man. He's had a few health problems, so his practices have fallen by the wayside a little bit. But
Is there any way
he's
you and
quite
your,
supportive.
okay, is there any sense that you and your son could put an altar in his room that you could share at times because he is a Buddhist?
Yeah.
It's not ideal, but you know,
Is it okay to have it in the bedroom, in his bedroom?
yeah, you can have it in a bedroom, of course.
Mm.
Yeah. So basically, if people have
Sometimes,
if people have statues in their bedrooms, just so you know, is if you're going to make love in your bedroom, cover the statues or turn them around because it's like a Buddha's there. You know, you wouldn't want to make love in front of, you know, holy
yeah,
being.
sure.
So but you can have statues in your bedrooms. Mine are in my
Yeah,
bedroom.
sure.
And, you know, absolutely, it's a blessing. So
Okay.
absolutely you can have it. You can have it in your bedroom if your husband's all right with that. Just don't have your feet pointing to the altar or the statues like that. Yeah. So I
Sure.
think you just have to do the best you
Okay.
can. The other thing
Okay.
you can do, because I know several of my female friends are wrestling with male partners who want to fix the thing themselves and they're going to do it, but they're not doing it. So some of my female friends have said to the male partner, if you're not able to start it or complete it by this date, I'm calling a contractor to do it. I've got 3 names right now and I'm going to call them, or I've already gotten bids because I need this done. And that's another thing that sometimes you can do
Yeah.
depending on the dynamics of your relationship.
Okay. 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 Yeah. I just wanted to check it was okay for a while to, you know, do the thing in the kitchen with the candle, take refuge. I do my guru yoga in there as well, if I can do it quickly before anyone else gets up. And I do my confessions. I do my
Sure, you
35
can,
Buddha confessions. I
you
don't have
can,
anywhere to prostrate
yeah, you can do it
properly,
anywhere.
and I have a problem.
You can do
Yeah.
it anywhere but the bathroom. The kitchen's kind of a strange place because you can't really sit on the kitchen floor. I mean, it's a little awkward. I would
I
do
have a
it.
couch. I have a
Can you
couch
do it
in the
in
kitchen.
your bedroom when your husband's out of the bedroom?
Yeah, when he's out of the bedroom, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, so
When he's
maybe
out
you
of
just
the
say to
bedroom.
him, this is my meditation time. So he just knows to stay out of the
Yeah.
bedroom for
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
Either is fine. Yeah, you could do like that if there's
Okay.
a space before people get up. And you just
Okay.
try to find a space that you can do prostrations, you know, in the meantime, like that. There's some place in the house you can do them anywhere, prostrations like that.
Okay. 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 As long
Try,
as you think it's fine. Thank you.
try your best.
Thank you so much.
You know, you do the best you can based on the spaces. We can, you know, nothing's perfect sometimes. But I would, again, if you have that
Okay.
room, try to get the room fixed and then you can go back in the room like that. Yeah.
All right.
You have
Thank you.
to,
Thank
all
you.
of you have to do the best
Thank
you can and make do in the meantime. Some people, New Yorkers, live in really small spaces. So they're often sitting in a corner of the room and it's the best you can do. I've lived in very small spaces and you just, you know, sometimes you have to sit on the bed and there's no other space. So you do the best you can. The main thing is to get to the practice so that there's a consistency, because I have traveled all over the world, like 6 months a year at different times. And that way the practice is happening wherever I am. I have one picture I laminated of all my teachers and that travels with me. So wherever I am, I just pull that out you know, but it's so consistent now that it doesn't really matter if I have an altar or not. You know, it's happening in my mind. And that's what you want to get to, that place like that. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Venerable.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to go to, I want to do this practice with you. Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay, and let me know if you can't see it at all. But the first thing I want to do before we start this practice is let's go back to how we want to sit, leading you in again, reminding you, okay? So again, we first want to get the posture in the right. How's your posture right now? What do you remember about the 7-point Vairocana posture? You can be in a chair, absolutely fine. Have your feet straight down, either under a cushion, on a cushion, whatever's comfortable, or a cross-legged posture if you're seated on a cushion on the floor or in a wide chair. Check that extension of the spine, position of the legs and hands, and just check the rest of the position. You can lightly close your eyes. And we are now bringing that gaze inward, trying to find comfort as much as possible in this position. And as you begin to deepen your respiration, remember that word, relax. Relax. So let's have a scan for a couple of minutes from the top of our head all the way down through our body, through our feet and toes. And use that inhalation to open up space. And use an exhalation to release any tension you find you're holding in your body right now. We've already set our motivation, so that would be a factor as well if you're starting your own practice. Let's do some deeper breathing with the 9-round breathing to just clear out any cobwebs in our subtle energy network. You can start by closing off the right nostril and exhaling deeply through the left. And then close off the left nostril as you inhale deeply through the right. 3 times, imagining you're lessening anger and hatred in your mind. Our second round, we are closing off the left nostril, exhaling deeply through the right. We're then switching, closing off the right nostril, inhaling deeply through the left. And imagine you're lessening attachment and desire in your mind 3 times. Our third round, we are exhaling through both nostrils. Inhaling through both nostrils, lessening ignorance and confusion in our mind 3 times. And bring your awareness to a normal, natural breath. So I want to discuss Shine as we're doing this. Your mind is on the breath, but what I'm going to do is ask you to focus on a different object of concentration. So I'd like you to place a golden drop of light right outside at the edge of the nostrils, where the air enters in and leaves the body. Tiny drop of golden light. So it's not that you're looking at yourself outside of yourself. You're just feeling this golden drop of light there. Visualize as best as you can. So with Shine, you are directly placing your mind. Shine is calm, abiding. It's one type of meditation we do called placement or stabilizing meditation. So you place your mind on an object, in this case, the tiny golden drop of light, with all of your focus there. Your mind may shift and go off after a thought, after a sound. And if it does, just become aware without any further story about it. No judgment needed, no elaboration. And back to that golden drop of light. So it's perfectly natural if you can't stay on the golden drop for more than a few seconds. We slowly try to lengthen that time on the object of meditation, the drop in this case. So another device you can use if your mind wanders off, it could be after a thought, can simply note for a moment, thinking, or a thought, and back to the golden drop of light. Maybe your mind runs out after a sound. gets distracted in that way. Observe, it's simply hearing or a sound. Back to the golden drop of light. Just try your best. So please relax for a moment. And I want to explain a little bit more about Shine meditation. So it's nice, Beth. You look like you're sitting at your altar. That looks sweet. Very nice. Is with Shine, one part of your mind is holding on the object as if you're absorbing into the object. Another part of your mind is checking the clarity of the visualization. So am I really holding the drop clearly and I'm on the drop? And you start getting to know your mind and understanding how it's working, where you're about to lose the drop, it's getting fuzzy. So you grab a hold, tighten up. But you don't want to tighten too much, because sometimes you tighten too much and the object will pop out. So the only way you'll get to understand this kind of holding more tightly, loosening up, balancing, is by doing the meditation. Doing a meditation over and over. And this is a really nice one to start with Shine after the posture, motivation, whichever order you do it in, relaxing into this is my meditation time, getting yourself as relaxed as possible, maybe a 9-round breathing, something like that, or not, depends how much time you have. And then I really like to just sit for a moment, like really on an object, or how's the mind going? Maybe just 10 minutes you start there, unless you have more time, or unless this is your main meditation that you're focusing on now, is Shine, like trying to attain calm abiding in a deeper retreat, okay? But it's a great place to start with just general practice before you launch into prayers and things like this, but also to show you how you can change things up. Now, here's the thing. We're starting with something simple of a golden drop of light. Some people may say it's uncomfortable outside my nostrils. Okay, move it. Some people place it here, third eye position in the center of the forehead. Try it there, especially if you're drowsy. It's up, it's higher up, brings the energy, brings your consciousness up. If you're thoroughly distracted and this makes you spaced out, holding it in the center of your forehead, move the drop down to your navel. Place it there. It tends to anchor you, right? So there's different places you can put it if you like, just experimenting with a golden drop of light. And the reason I like it with beginners sometimes is if you're about to lose the drop, meaning you're getting distracted, I'm about to go out after a thought, my agenda for the day, my items, my list, make the drop brighter, brighten the intensity of the drop. Sometimes it brings the mind right back in there. Oh, right, the drop. Like basically the drop saying, when it's brighter, pay attention to me. This is what we're doing right now. Okay. So that's one example with Shine. And then the other thing you're doing, Shine is like a train tracks. This is your concentration. So you're on that track, you're following that thread of concentration on my object of meditation. In this sense, the drop. Even if the drop is here, outside the nostrils, I am on it in my mind because I'm not having my eyes open with Shine, unless you're facing basically a blank wall that is not distracting. They say with Shine, close your eyes. The reason is you're bringing up a mental image. You're working from your mind's side. And with Shine, it doesn't really matter what your object is. You know, people say, I didn't have the right object, that's why I can't concentrate. I should have picked an image of the Buddha. You can have Shine on a paperclip. You know, it doesn't matter. It's from your mind side. I'm on my object and I'm holding it clearly on that object. My mind is abiding calmly, staying there calmly on that object, holding it there. My mind becomes absorbed into the object. So it's you exercising your mind. Your mind needs exercise just like your body does. And the way we exercise our mind is in meditation and with various mental exercises that can help support that. So one part of the mind holding, and then the other part of the mind trying to clarify how clear is that drop of light. And you can have it glistening and think the drop of light's not turning or moving. It is holding it, whatever object it is, holding it in one place like that. It's very natural. If you have an image of the Buddha, people say it starts turning, it's dancing around. That's distraction. That's simply distraction. We are trying to quiet that down so I can place my mind stilly on that object with stillness on that object and hold it there. Okay. So that's one. And then you're holding that attention there. And it takes a lot of effort. The first like 7 stages of Shine. There's 9 stages until you achieve calm abiding. And in the meditation course I'm doing Friday night, we've been talking about distractions and obstacles to that kind of meditation. So things like when you're drowsy and things like when you're very excited and things like when your mind is chasing pizza and how do you calm it down? Okay, so it's very normal to have those obstacles and there's antidotes to those obstacles. But the main thing is I have my concentration here with a lot of effort on it. Almost like one Lama showed us once holding a walking stick. His hand was on the top of the walking stick. And he said, you know, this is Shine with like a huge grip, like really firmly. But it does, the last couple phases become effortless, okay? But again, one part of the concentration there, what happens is notice your distractions are trying to pull you away and you hold, you toe that line. I'm right there. So that's what we're trying to develop and build slowly, okay? So now the reason we often pick an image of the Buddha on which to meditate is we say in our tradition, it's uplifting for the mind and it leaves a more positive imprint on the mind, okay? But that's going to be more elaborate. So what you might want to do is have a card of an image of a Buddha you like, could be any Buddha, doesn't matter, okay? And you're going to look at the card a little bit and then put the card down, close your eyes and try to bring that image up in your mind. So you're not doing Shine looking at the card. Okay, I'm going to bring it up in my mind and maybe I find that the image is too elaborate. So what I'm going to do is maybe I start with the face of that Buddha, knowing the body's there, but I'm really going to focus on the features of the face. Maybe that's too much and I'm going to just begin with the eyes. You know, knowing the image is there, but I'm focused on the eyes in my mind and I'm clarifying the eyes, making them more clear. So that's a way you can also choose an object like that. If you're working with different objects, what I would suggest is pick an object this next week. Is a little homework assignment. Choose an object and keep the object for a week. Like try during the week 1 or 2 objects, but don't go to more because then the mind just gets distracted. So try 2 or 3 days with one object and then try 2 or 3 days with another object. And then the last day, choose one object and stay with that and see how that works. And then try the Shine where you're staying on the object. And what you want to do is do very short segments, meaning maybe you have 15 minutes. So you've already gotten your posture and your motivation and you're ready. And now you have 15 minutes left. Okay. Break it into 5-minute segments. You don't need a timer. You can use a timer or a watch, but that in 15 minutes, that can be distracting. Just estimate 5 minutes. And you can have your clock next to you and look at it. What you're going to do is make a determination at the beginning of the segment, like, this is what I'm doing now. I am going to focus my mind on this object for the next 5 minutes without my mind wandering. So you're kind of saying it to yourself, telling your mind, this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm directing the energy. I'm not checking my phone now. Oh, I hear the buzzer go off. I'm going to look at that for a second. This is what I'm doing. It's only 15 minutes. Right now, the next 5 minutes, I'm going to keep, because if you're trying to do Shine for 20 minutes and you're newer, your mind's just going to be off the object and it's boring. So 5 minutes, let's see if I can keep my mind, how focused I can keep my mind in 5 minutes. My mind will leave the object several times in 5 minutes. That's okay. But if you lose the object of your concentration, let's say the golden drop of light, and let's say you lose it 3 times in the 5 minutes, then take your mind off the object for a moment. Open your eyes, sit in the same, don't move, just open your eyes. 10, 20 seconds, give yourself, look around, just move your eyes around the room a little bit. Maybe you take a deep breath, maybe you kind of straighten up your shoulders, but you're still just seated without very much moving. And then close your eyes. Bring your mind to the drop or whatever object. And for the remainder of the segment, I'm going to keep my mind on this object without wavering and go on the object. So once you lose it about 3 times, it just becomes, you're going to keep losing it. So then stop the meditation, 10, 20 seconds, and off you go. Try it again. You just keep trying slowly. This is practice. This is how we practice. This is how we get started. This is how we maintain practice. Honestly, some days will go much better than other days. We just keep the consistency. We keep showing up even when my mind's not that cooperative, okay? But when it's not that cooperative with Shine, then I'm going to take myself into a different kind of practice if I want to. But I'm going to at least give myself, if you have the time, 5 or 10 or 15 minutes of trying that. Really nice to build concentration, okay? Then we're going to go over here. Shakyamuni Buddha practice with single-pointed concentration that I just explained and refuge prayer. Okay, so this one we did briefly last week. So what I'm going to do, let's say now here I am in my practice. I might have a prayer book in front of me. I may have a tablet or a computer in front of me with the prayers. That's okay. As long as you're not distracted by other things on the computer screen and you're not checking email and doing other things, that's perfectly fine. So now I'm going to bring up my Shakyamuni Buddha practice. So just from where you're sitting right now, I'd like you to just close your eyes again, and I'm going to describe this. And this is all written down, so this is something you can do at home. So I just like you to right now, as you close your eyes, visualize the Buddha in the space in front of you. Golden, radiant being facing you about 6 inches in height. And he's slightly higher than the level of your forehead, a few feet in front of you. So that's going to be a common visualization for a lot of deity practices, and certainly all the different Shakyamuni Buddha versions we're going to do in this class. So eventually I'll stop describing as many details and I'll say, hopefully from your practice during the week, visualize the Buddha in the space in front. And he is on a beautiful jeweled throne. And each corner of the throne is supported by 2 snow lions. So there's 8 snow lions around the corners of the throne, representing his fearlessness. He is draped in beautiful saffron robes, his hair tied up in a blue-black top knot with a crown protrusion on the top in Ushanisha, which is a sign of enlightenment. Eyes are lightly closed to show he's in meditative absorption. Slightly open to show he sees all living beings that he has compassion for and has a wish to help. His lips are red to show he teaches out of compassion. His left hand is in his lap holding a begging bowl filled with nectar. His right hand is by his right knee, touching the moon cushion on which he sits, which are three different things on which he sits. So on top of the throne first is a beautiful open multicolored lotus flower that represents renunciation, which is about giving up whatever disturbs your mind. Then there's a moon cushion lying flat, a big white cushion that is conventional bodhicitta, that enlightened attitude of getting enlightened to benefit all living beings. On top of that is a sun disk lying flat like a golden pillow that represents ultimate bodhicitta, or the wisdom realizing emptiness. Renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness make up the three principal aspects of the path, or the three principles of the path. That is his foundation on which he rests. As best as you can, imagine as if he is there, this radiant golden being. If you like, you can imagine around you, seated are all the members of your family to your sides, even if they've passed away. Just get a feeling as if they're really there. Behind you are friends and colleagues that you like, forming a semicircle in support. In front of you, facing you below the Buddha, could be any people you have difficulty with. And all the rest of the space, just imagine, is filled with living beings, maybe strangers, beings you don't know. And just think about all these beings for a moment, of all the various ways they suffer. Can you generate that big wish in your heart if they could just be free of suffering? But think that I also suffer. I also endure various sufferings. So if I could really find a source of protection from more suffering, which could be the Buddha, who is also representative of the Dharma and the Sangha. So if I choose to go for refuge there, that may be really an ultimate support, somebody really protecting me from more suffering. So feel a little bit of that refuge from your heart to that enlightened being in the space in front of the Buddha. If you feel connection there. So this is a place, if you like, you could include that 4-line refuge prayer here, or you can turn to what I have on the screen right now, where it says Namo Gurubhye, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. If you want to deepen some refuge and clear away what prevents you from taking refuge, visualize first from the heart of the Buddha. Colored light rays comes right now of what represents purification to you from his heart, and it enters through your forehead and the forehead of all the beings around you. So what it first does is clear any obstacles to taking proper refuge as I recite these mantras. So we're just going to recite a few. And again, they represent to the Guru I go for refuge, to the Buddha I go for refuge, to the Dharma I go for refuge, to the Sangha I go for refuge. But I'm going to say them in the Sanskrit on the left of the screen. I hope you can all see. So again, with this nectar and light rays, and I know here in the text it says white nectar and light rays representing purification, but if you'd like to visualize another color, that's perfectly fine. That represents purification to you. Namo Guru Bhye, 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 Namo Guru Bhye. So it's not a mental recitation. You're actually, air is leaving your mouth as you recite it, but you can recite it more quietly if you like. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. So here I'm clearing whatever obstacles I have from taking refuge in the Buddha. The next line, any obstacles I have from taking refuge in the Dharma, and so forth. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Sanghaya. Now we're going to go back and do it with golden light rays coming from the heart of Shakyamuni Buddha in the space in front. These golden light rays come over to you and all the living beings you visualize, entering through your foreheads, granting you all the blessings and realizations. Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Guru Bhye. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Namo Sanghaya, 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 Namo Sanghaya. Namo Sanghaya. So when we're doing a practice like this, if you are choosing to do what I would call a refuge nundro, where you're trying to complete maybe 20,000 recitations of each line or 50,000 or 100,000, you're going to do one line generally at a time. Namo Guru Bhye, over and over and over. And then you're going to at least try to complete one mala, one rosary in each session of Namo Guru Bhye. Okay. And then when you finish that one rosary, then you'd say Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Like you can do it more quickly, just a few of those. But the ones you're really concentrating on counting, you'd want to do at least one rosary, one complete rosary. And usually it's very fast, so you may complete 5 at a time, depending on how long you're sitting, how long the time you have. So we have the golden light rays blessing. And then at that point, here it says a dedication on the bottom of page 95. But we're going to go on to recite some of Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra. Okay. And again, this is a place where you're using your single pointed concentration, your shine. So as I'm doing that visualization of the light coming from the Buddha's heart, whichever colored light rays, streaming over to me and all living beings, entering our foreheads, as I'm reciting, I want to keep my mind as focused as possible on the visualization. Okay, so let me go to the Buddha's mantra, which is right here, page 101. And again, what I'd like you to visualize, this is just an example of visualizing a deity with mantra recitation. And this is Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra. Taya ta om muni, and it's not muni, even though it's spelled that way. The I should really be an E, It's Mune, 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 Maha Munaye, Soha. So the Soha can be pronounced as Svaha. Both are correct the way I was taught. And the reason it's the V can be silent is the Tibetans don't have a V in their language. So this is from Sanskrit, but a lot of their V's are either silent in this word, S-V-A-H-A, Svaha, or Soha, like that. Or if it's the beginning of a word, like Vajra, they pronounced it Benza because they didn't have the V. So both are fine like that. So the more traditional way we recite Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra is, the chant is Taya ta om mune mune maha mune soham. So we're going to recite that 3 times, but what I'd like you to visualize once again is from the heart of Shakyamuni Buddha as we're reciting this mantra. Golden light rays are coming forth, and they're coming over, entering our foreheads and all the living beings around us, granting us once again, not as specific to refuge, but once again, all the blessings of his holy body, holy speech, and holy mind. Taya ta om mune mune maha mune soha. Taya ta om mune mune maha mune soha. Taya ta om mune mune maha mune soha. Then we're going to recite Taya Domuni Muni Mamanaiso, Taya Domuni Muni Mamanaiso. So again, keeping the visualization going with your concentration as best as you can, we'll recite some of the mantras. Again, air does need to leave your mouth. If you're in a group retreat, it would be not too loud to disturb the person seated next to you. But if you're home alone, you can recite however loudly as you like. Taya Domuni Muni Mamanaiso. And you can recite at any pace that you like once the mantra is very clear for you. Taya Domuni Muni Mamanaiso. Taya ta om mune mune maha mune soha. And as it says here, just feel your body and mind are completely pervaded by this golden light of enlightenment. This is a manifestation of perfect wisdom, perfect compassion, perfect ability. The highest manifestation of yourself. when you become a Buddha. But the sole perfect purpose is so we can benefit all living beings. And just think for a minute, this is me. This is what I want to become. I have this capacity. And from there, you can go on to other practices, meditations, or a dedication, any dedication prayers. So please relax. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. So I would really love if you could do that practice this week a few times if you can. This is the way you're going to build your daily practice. So I'm just giving you an example of one way, because eventually, if you stay on this path, if you have interest in getting a tantric empowerment, finding, first of all, an appropriate guru, meaning a highly realized being, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, getting a tantric empowerment from somebody qualified like that, right? But with intent to want to do that deity's practice, do retreat on the practice. It's a quicker path to enlightenment with this purpose of benefiting all living beings. You're eventually going to be visualizing that aspect of the Buddha, that deity. So we're practicing now with the Buddha, very simple. But slowly it's going to unfold where it starts growing in your practice. So if we can't get this basic level set up, it's really hard to add on additional layers of the house of your practice. And in any event, if you just stay here with this level, it's phenomenally good for your mind. And just know, but you yourself have to notice, is it helping me? Is it beneficial? Do I like this? And really, if you don't like it and it's not working, please find something else, really. Something else that will keep your mind balanced, because it's from this kind of foundational practice we can start building in a lot of other practices. Whether you want to add a little bit of mindfulness, which isn't necessarily Tibetan Buddhist, but it also, mindfulness relates to concentration. If we want to add Tonglen meditation or more analytical meditations on the Lam Rim, which we're going to talk about in this class. If we want to go into Lojong, mind training practices, and ultimately tantric practice like that, this is all building that layer for you to balance everything else on. So just the Shakyamuni practice that you could do with some refuge if you like. If you don't have the time for those refuge Sanskrit prayers, then at least try Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra with the visualization and try that, and then dedication prayers. So again, please have the motivation in the beginning. Please have the dedication at the end. Those are fundamental parts of our practice. Dedicate the merit, positive energy. There's prayers you can say. Just read the prayers if you're not sure what to say. You can also dedicate, let's say I just did a 5-minute practice. If there was any merit, any benefit in it, I'd like to dedicate to this particular friend who's sick right now, this friend who just had a cancer diagnosis, may they be well, this person who just died, may they take a good rebirth to become a Buddha to benefit all. May this friend clear obstacles from her life being such a mess, or whatever you want to dedicate to getting that meditation room fixed so that you can sit. That would be really great, like that. So, but basically we want to have a loftier idea of dedication, not that our sports team wins the whatever, things like that. Okay, I want to explain right now the 7-limb practice. 7 limbs, 7 lines, 7-limb practice. And I'm going to show you, oops, not that.
Venerable, would you like me to share that?
Actually, yes, yeah, I'm just looking for that document. So that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. This is a 7-limb practice, and this also is included as a very important part of our practice. If you like, now you can say it in 7 lines, but some of the Guru Yoga practices, and I mentioned some of these Guru Yoga practices last week, have more elaborate 7-limb prayers. So for instance, this particular booklet, that part of it is in your exercises and your materials, Shakyamuni Buddha Practice Booklet. This includes it, and this is a type of Guru Yoga, a very simple one. Fantastic, just like we did. All we did, you visualize the Buddha, and you want to read this a few times, and the reason is you start to understand the symbolism, and you make it a little bit more detailed. You know, if I just say the Buddha and I kind of have this golden light out there, but if I read a little bit in here and I go, oh, so his lips are red because he teaches out of compassion, will remind me to have his lips red. The blue black top knot in his hair, the golden robes with position of his hands, the snow lions. So you start adding, and it's good for your mind to exercise that level of visualization. This contains a lot of the prayers that are in your materials. And I mentioned Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga is a little bit more elaborate visualization, a little bit more elaborate Guru Yoga practice. More elaborate is something called Lama Chopa, or Guru Puja in Sanskrit. And that's just a little bit more elaborate practice, longer, and that 7 lines is many stanzas. Okay, so let's look here, 7-limb prayer. Thank you so much, that's shared on our screen. Okay. First line, I prostrate reverently with my body, speech, and mind. I was taught when you recite this prayer, if you'd like, put your hands in prostration mudra. Anytime you see an image of the Buddha, anytime you see a statue, a painting, maybe a stupa, a shrine, right? From your side, if you put your hands like this, you're showing respect. It can indicate that your mind is showing respect. Now, I know people put their hands like this and their mind is garbage, okay? Sometimes, but this is a little bit, it pulls me together. I put my hands like this and suddenly I'm like, oh, right, the Buddha is there. So they say it's good for your mind when you put your hands in the mudra of prostrations. Now, here's the other thing about this mudra, okay? The thumbs are tucked in inside, so the hands are never empty. It's not a yoga mudra like this. Here you have empty hands. If I'm offering empty hands, okay, that creates poverty for me. I'm not offering anything. But if I put these in, okay, the jewel, these in the lotus, these are like lotus flowers. The jewel in the lotus, okay? My hands are never empty. So in a sense, I'm just, symbolism, as if I'm offering a jewel to the Buddha. And you can think that when you put your hands together. You know, there I am in Kopan Monastery, where they have incredible images, beautiful. I mean, it's so uplifting for my mind when I'm there. You know, not only is it at my spiritual home as well, but the statues are so beautiful and I just get motivated now. I just put my hands and then there's a little offering I can think that I'm making. Just a quick, 2 seconds. I don't have to have much thought about it. Just a couple seconds, boom, like that. So these are simple ways. So Om Mani Padme Hum, for instance, the mantra of the Buddha of infinite compassion, Chen Reizig, Om Mani Padme Hum, one of our most basic mantras. Most people know that mantra. Om is like an opener to many mantras. Om, it's kind of the universal syllable, okay? Om, like the all of the universe, okay? Mani is jewel. Mani is jewel. Padme, lotus. Jewel in the lotus. Hung, or hum, H-U-N or H-U-N-G, is usually a closer for mantras like amen, okay? In a sense, on one level, that mantra could mean the all of the universe is like a jewel in the lotus of my heart, okay? But it means things on different levels as well as on a highest yoga tantra level. And the real significance of mantra is mind protection. Mind protection. Think about mind protection on a basic level, okay? I was in an earthquake in San Francisco in 1989. It was a significant earthquake. I was in my office, which was in an office of 30 people in a concrete building, south of Market in San Francisco, and the building just started coming apart. Like plaster was falling from the ceiling, the windows were popping out. My coworkers were screaming. And what some people might do in a situation like that is what's a word, what's a phrase that might be on your mind? People might have a phrase like, and I'm going to soften it up here, oh, kaka, right? Okay, but you can say a mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. Some disasters about, you're almost about to have an accident, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme, mine, I'm protecting my mind. I'm protecting my mind, because if kaka is the last word on my mind and that building falls on my head, I could come back as a fly, because they're very attracted to kaka. But if it's Om Mani Padme Hum, mind protection. It directs my mind, brings my mind into a little bit like, okay, let me not have a negative judgment about that person. Let me not say a negative thing about that person. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, whatever mantra. Maybe it's Tara's mantra, maybe Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra. But the thing with mantras on a deeper level, it has an inner resonance that connects to your subtle energy network, subtle energy system. And it helps us clear out delusion when we're doing them properly, sometimes with visualization, and helps us to create the positive conditions that we need. So I just wanted to explain that little interjection. Line number 1, 7-limb prayer. I prostrate reverently with my body, speech, and mind. This is all about reverence, homage, respect. Prostration. Prostrations humble you. So this is a wonderful line that helps you build humility in your mind and having respect and things like that. Okay. 2nd limb, I present clouds of every type of offering, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. Okay. This is about generosity. And this is an antidote to miserliness. So at this limb and at the prostration limb, if you like, and sometimes we say this prayer really quickly. I prostrate reverently with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of, we're just reading through it. And some people read it without much significance in their mind. They're not thinking about it. They're spaced out thinking about their lists and what they're going to have for dinner tonight. And bring the presence of mind. That's our concentration again. That's our single point of concentration back in. I prostrate reverently with my body, speech, and mind. I may, for a brief instant, visualize myself making full prostrations, many, many emanations of myself to the Buddha. Okay, because the Buddha is still in front of me, I can visualize. That's why I'm doing this. You can put any of your other teachers there in front of you. Absolutely. Okay, so visualize yourself making prostrations if you like. Right? Visualize yourself bowing your head or paying homage. Okay. Line 2, visualize just briefly if you'd like. Sometimes I have to do it very quickly because I don't have time. Sometimes I have more time to visualize offerings. I set up offerings every day on my altar, first thing in the morning. So I set them up and make sure they're nice. But then I present clouds of every type of offering. When I read that line, maybe briefly you want to visualize magnificent offerings. Could be tangible offerings, like light offerings and fruit and flowers and things like that. I can visualize all the love I've ever experienced. Beautiful sunsets. Whatever pleases your mind, visualize it multiplying all through all of space of the finest qualities, bringing incredible bliss to the minds of the holy beings. They don't need the offerings. It's from our side, for our mind. We create positive energy and merit by making these offerings. Okay. Next line, I confess all my negative actions and downfalls collected from beginningless time. This is confession that plays into proper regret. This is not about feeling guilty. The Tibetans don't even have a word for guilt in their language, which really attracted me to this system. But regret is very powerful. Regret where I blew it, I messed up. We all do, we're human. And I kind of want to feel sad and sorry about, wow, that really hurt that person. I really hurt myself. That really came out of my ignorance. I don't know what I was thinking. Just lost my mindfulness and snapped at somebody, whatever it is for you, driving with aggression or whatever. So I'm just going to reflect on that for a moment, and it humbles you a bit. And it really helps to generate that regret to help us do effective purification when we want to do that, which I highly recommend. We're going to do this later in the course. Vajrasattva practice every evening to minimize any negative things I've done during the day. Fourth limb, I rejoice in the virtues of ordinary beings and Aryas. Rejoicing is the easiest way to accumulate positive energy. Rejoicing. And this cuts jealousy and resentment and competition, things like that. So, and what you can do is just think for a moment. First of all, it says in the virtues of ordinary beings, that's us, and Aryas. Aryas are beings that have seen the truth directly, higher level beings, highly realized beings, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, like that. So the first thing I want to do is just rejoice in some positive things you've done today or yesterday or past week or month, okay, in a balanced way. This is not that you're an egomaniac. This is, I got somebody flowers. I made that really nice dinner the other night for my family. They seem to really like it. Great. That was nice. I made an offering to my teacher, to my guru. You know, I helped the center with this. I participated in that class last week. I was really happy I got that going. That was great. Whatever it is, you have a moment and you think of other ordinary beings, your friends, what they did, the effort they made. Somebody did this kind thing. And then think of holy beings. Think of His Holiness and Lama Zopa Rinpoche and, you know, all these amazing teachers and the projects that they have going on that are helping countless beings. Unbelievable. All the teachings they've given us, all the care and advice and kindness that they've showed us. And you just take a moment in your heart and you just think, how wonderful it is. Fantastic. So again, cuts jealousy, competition, wishing others ill. If that's the kind of where your mind goes, rejoicing is a great practice for you. And they say that regarding spiritual practice, if you hear about in the season in Bodh Gaya, the season there usually is September through March, when a lot of people go to do practice and they do 100,000 prostrations and they make 100,000 mandala offerings and they, you know, people are there doing these huge prayer festivals and you've never been to Bodh Gaya and you're not going to go there. But if you see a picture or hear about it or your friend went and they did prostrations and you just think, that's fantastic. So if the being has less realizations than you, which you're not going to know, but you just can imagine, you would get twice the merit they get for doing all those prostrations, and you haven't made one prostration. If they have more realizations than you, get half of their merit just from rejoicing. So it's a really great practice to do. And if you're not a natural rejoicer, through the practice of rejoicing, even if you're faking it at first, you will eventually, it will become normal and automatic to you. Next limb. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence. Okay, so this is where I may have the Buddha in front of me. I may have a whole merit field in front of me, meaning the Buddha and maybe Lama Tsongkhapa with the Buddha at his heart and all these lineage gurus and my gurus. And I may visualize that they're all seated on thrones. And now I'm imagining offering golden thrones that meld and dissolve into their thrones so that they have a place to stay until samsara ends. Samsara is cyclic existence. So please remain, please stay. Like, don't leave us, because if samsara is still here and I don't have anyone to teach or guide us, where are we going to be? So you make that request, because requests are very important to your teachers and to the gurus. Just imagining they're there. Ask for whatever you might want in your practice as well. Ask for any specific things. I really hope, for me, I ask, like I pray every day to remain a nun or good nun. I pray that I can continue to teach if it's beneficial. I pray to be able to do retreat, to be able to serve beings as much as I can, to have the energy and the good health to do that. Make it specific like that if you want. Ask for whatever you want for. And that's kind of that line of requesting. These are all in a sense requests, but that one really brings up that, you know, the only reason again why I teach is because I'm requested. So the requests are so important to connect you to that energy. The next limb is, and turn the wheel of Dharma for transmigratory beings. Transmigratory beings, again, is us, ordinary beings, ordinary sentient beings. And turn the wheel of Dharma, what you might want to visualize is 1,000-spoked Dharma chakra. Chakra is wheel, a Dharma wheel. And that represents to turn the wheel of Dharma, to teach, asking them to teach. And I may offer them, imagine my merit field or the Buddha, and offer that, imagine you're bowing your head, offering that golden wheel like that, and to ask them please to teach, because the legends are different Buddhas will manifest in different times, different eons of our world systems. And the best bliss right now is Shakyamuni Buddha, which is our historical Buddha who brought us our teachings right now in this, even though he lived 2,600 years ago. But this Buddha teaches the entire path, including Tantra. The next Buddha that comes, Maitreya Buddha, which he represents loving kindness, he doesn't teach Tantra. So he will teach other things, but not Tantra, so not the quick path. There will be other Buddhas that manifest, that get enlightened, and they don't teach at all, just based on the causes and conditions of that world system and the beings there. Right now we have everything. So I am going to ask again, please turn the wheel, please teach for all of us. And the last line, the last limb is I dedicate my own and others' virtues to great enlightenment. So that prayer of dedication again, investing all the positive energy that we've created through the other 6 limbs. Let's read it once together in English, and then we're also going to chant it in the Tibetan phonetics, just so you hear that. Okay, so let's read first in English. Feel free to join if you'd like. I prostrate reverently with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. I confess all my negative actions and downfalls collected from beginningless time. I rejoice in the virtues of ordinary beings and Aryas. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for transmigratory beings. I dedicate my own and others' virtues to great enlightenment. In the Tibetan phonetics. Gosum gupe gone chak selo ngo sham yi chu chujin malubu to mene sagdi tundam che shag ke bage wanam la je yirang korwama tombal dule junge drola choki korlo korwadam da jenge nanjan chu chemborngo. So the NG, when you see it in Tibetan phonetics, the NG is pronounced in the back of your throat, nga. So it's not a G, it's a silent G, but it's not ne, like N in the front of your teeth, ne. It's nga in the back of your throat, nga, like that, just so to explain. So again, 7-limb prayer. And if you're doing the Shakyamuni Buddha practice, where you're going to add that in, if you'd like. So again, let's imagine for a moment, you get your posture, you get your motivation. Allow yourself to relax for a moment. Doing meditation practice, you relax. Maybe you do a 9-round breathing. Maybe you do some shine, just quiet the mind before you get a lot of words happening. Just stillness, focusing on something. Maybe you've decided to recite that 4-line refuge prayer 3 times, just to little juiciness, little oil for the mind. Any orders of those you want to do, that's just one order I'm leading you in. But if you forget an order and you go, what was I supposed to do? If you forget the nostrils of the 9-round breathing, it doesn't matter. Just do what you can. Do what you remember. So don't get stuck going, I can't do it because I forget which I'm supposed to close off. It's just alternate nostril breathing. Good enough. Like that. So try not to let those things stick where you go, I can't do that. And then if you'd like, you visualize the Buddha. If you'd like, you can do some refuge recitations if you like. If you don't have time, skip the refuge recitations. And then what you're going to do from there is, that's an area, if you like, you can once again, but think about the refuge and think about how we really need to take refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. If you feel a connection to that, who's really going to protect me from more suffering? Okay. So if you'd like, that's a place you could put in the 4-line refuge prayer. If you don't want to recite Namo Guru Bhyo, recite the 4-line refuge with some feeling 3 times, right? And then you can come into the 7-limb prayer, with then is something, if you'd like, you can add it in there. I'm thinking about different things like that. So I'm just slowly building this up for you, okay? Any questions right now?
Hi, Venerable Amy. I
Mary?
have a question from last week. It was your recipe for making the saffron water, but I don't know how to make that. And you said you boil it, but can you?
Sure.
say-
Sure. Some people like to put saffron water to mix it for their water bowls. It creates a very lovely golden color, but saffron represents pure morality. And it smells very nice if you get good saffron. So there's cheap saffron that doesn't smell and just colors the water yellow like that. It may stain the bowls a little bit, not necessarily, but it doesn't have the scent. Spanish saffron is some of the more expensive. It's expensive, right? Do you know where saffron comes from, anybody? Crocuses. You know how many strands one crocus holds? 3, maybe 3 little strands of saffron. That's why it's so expensive. Okay, that's why it's very expensive. But so what you can do is, I ordered some online. I don't know if I have the best place to order, but you can look and try little, comes in very small things, very expensive. What I do is I will take a small saucepan, purified water, and I'll take a little clump, put it in there, and I will boil it for or keep it on high for 20 minutes, turn it down and leave it in there. I'm not the best person at boiling. I know some people that really get a really dark concentration. I don't know how they do it, but you boil it. And then what I do is I use that water as a concentrate. And then what I'll do is, you have to keep it refrigerated because it will go bad. It will get mold. I keep it in the refrigerator in a jar. And then when I have my water bowl pitcher, I just put a little splash in there, fill it up with water, purified water if you like. And then you only need the bowls to be light golden, not dark golden, lightly golden. And that's good enough. And just that so some people like to do that.
Thank you.
Sure. Great question. Any other questions so far from what we're doing in these practices? Is the practice also, is it resonating a little bit, starting to put it together? We've only had a couple sessions, so just trying to see if this is, some of you may have other ideas of, I thought this was going to be about a different kind of practice, but just kind of giving you one tradition of how things that have worked for my mind as well. Okay, everybody doing okay? Doris, you have a question? You're doing okay.
I'm doing okay. I'm
Okay,
having
great.
fun.
Great. Okay, I want to talk about the mandala offering before we close. Can we bring that text up with the mandala offering there? Thank you, Mary. Oh, thank you. They're so sweet about the faculty page. It's very helpful. Some of you are very generous. Thank you so much. And they have a way now to offer to the teachers, and it's really helpful because it's not that you need to offer anything. Please, there's no obligation whatsoever. Please know that. But the main thing is, when we're in person, people at centers, the centers would have envelopes and people would come up at the end and make an offering. But when you're on Zoom, that what hasn't been happening with a lot of centers. Some centers are quite good with it, but what often happens, I have to say honestly, and I've mentioned this before, is the Buddhist nuns the Western nuns seem to somehow be at the bottom of the list. So if you're Tibetan, like everybody empties their wallets, and then it kind of goes down. Sometimes men more than women get more, it's just a strange thing. So some of the centers now have been conscious to kind of say something, and I really appreciate it. So it's very, very helpful because we don't get support. We're not supported by any organization. We're on our own. Unless you're at a center, working for a center or helping a center, or you have a benefactor hosting you, we don't have a nunnery in North America. That's the reality for Western nuns right now. And not a lot of support. A lot of people think we're supported by FPMT, but we're not. So that's the reality. You can apply for a grant from our Monks and Nuns Fund. You can get a maximum of $300 a month. So let me know if you think that's going to support people in the United States. So that is the reality of what goes on. So we rely on the kindness of others. And thank you, because people are very kind. Okay, this is the short mandala offering. In order to get teachings, this represented was a symbol that in ancient days, and this is also about generosity, people would traverse thousands of miles with their most precious jewel to offer it to the teacher to get one line of the Lamrim. That's what it was like in ancient days. Now, everything's taught all over the place. It's all online, it's easy. You don't even need to make an offering, you just show up. And so we've kind of gotten more and more degenerate to understand the preciousness of the teachings. There's no coercion about giving money. This is what you wanted to do. There was a reciprocal arrangement because the Dharma was so precious and seen as very precious. So you would want to do something incredible to support that happening. So the mandala offering has evolved as a symbol. Mandala is world system in Sanskrit, kind of a configuration of the universe. And you've heard about sand mandalas like that. So that's where they'll construct a two-dimensional, thing of a certain deity's paradise or their world system like that. This is the shortest version of the mandala. There are long versions. And people also put their hands in a certain configuration that represents the universe. If you put your ring fingers, you could try back to back. That represents Mount Meru, which is the center of Buddhist cosmology. It's an inverted pyramid. So the point is down and it's got four sides with a flat top. Okay, and then your middle fingers are in the front, pulled apart by your pointers, by the opposite pointers. And if you look in the back, I've got my pinkies also pulled apart and held by the opposing thumb. This is a mandala offering, just a simple version. And what we like to do is put our rosary, our mala, in our hands when we do it. And it just takes a little bit of practice. So this way I can make this offering without my hands being empty. If you like, you can put a ring in your palm, your watch, your eyeglasses, something just so that you're visualizing something precious. And you make this offering while we recite this prayer. This ground, feel free to join in, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. So you just take a moment, you can recite that little verse, but you want to visualize the most incredible universe you can. Again, like the offerings we talked about. Beautiful sunrises, sunsets, love, all the jewels you've ever thought, a heap of rubies and diamonds and sapphires, beautiful food, flowers, nectars, your precious dear family and friends and pets and things like whatever you feel that generates bliss in your mind, that will generate bliss in the Buddha in front of you. And you make this offering. And then the last line is, please, precious Guru, in a sense, please accept this mandala offering. Idam Guru Radna Mandala Kam Niratayami. And then you can collapse it into you, the mandala, which is about, can you grant me bring me the blessings and realizations? So eventually you'd have a mandala set. And what that is a base, which could just be a plate turned upside down like a stainless steel bowl, on top of which you'd have 3 rings like a wedding cake, like each ring progressively smaller. The rings can be made out of beaded things that are pretty. Some of them are made out of metals. And then you would fill it. The basic way is people filled it with white rice, but now we can get beads, glass beads that are very beautiful, and you can put your favorite ring in there and your different, anything precious, and you keep this mandala set wrapped up in a cloth, and then you can use it as if you want to do a more elaborate type of mandala. We used to have a mandala workshop when I was at Vajrapani in California. We had a group that really wanted to learn, and they went to like an arts and crafts store and they bought different materials, very cheap, and they made their own mandalas. And then we had a circle, we sat, and I taught them how to do it. And yeah, it was really very sweet. It's funny, somehow degenerate times, we've gotten so far away from that, where people just are practicing a little differently. You know, it's really a different time right now, but we could certainly do that. That would be really fun. So again, that would be another way that we set up our practice, okay? And that would come after the 7-line prayer, 7-limb prayer, is then you could do a short mandala. There's other mandala verses you could do to set this up. And then the next thing would be requests. And I'm going to talk about that next week. And then following that would be, if you'd like to recite a Lam Rim prayer, you can include that. And then I'm going to talk about analytical meditation on the Lam Rim. How do I include that in my practice? Slowly, again, all of this with the Buddha or any holy images we want to visualize in the space in front of us. Slowly, before we get to the very end, where we do an absorption of that whole visualization into us to grant us the blessings, with final dedication prayers. So just to give you a whole picture of that, of how you can start to construct a practice, and then you can start to tweak it of what's really going to be realistic in your life, what's going to work, what do you like, what resonates with you. And if there's things that are not resonating now, put them to the side, and you can always pick them up later and revisit. What else? Any other questions, comments, concerns? And thank you again. Mary's posted the course materials. So please do have a look at those. And let me just mention right now, for next week, if you can, I've already mentioned as a review, please choose an object on which to meditate separate from the golden drop of light. If you'd like, Shakyamuni Buddha, good enough. If you want to try that and exercise that, if you're having trouble with visualizations, please pick an object simple that you're very familiar with, like I mentioned, an apple. Okay, not as uplifting for the mind, but again, you've got different objects you can try with. So please take 2 or 3 days on one object, 2 or 3 days on another. If you can keep some concentration going, try that with Shine when you set that up in your practice. And then try the Shakyamuni Buddha practice. Bring the Buddha in, whether you want to recite refuge, whether you want to recite the Buddha's mantra. And if you'd like, before you do the Buddha's mantra, you can bring in the 7-line prayer like that if you want, or you can do it after 7-limb prayer, mandala offering, try that. And those are in the materials. And then if you want to do some readings, we now have in the materials, one of the texts is called The Wish-Fulfilling Golden Sun. Okay. Pages 37 to 41, just a few pages was from last week. So if you want to read that about morning prayers, you can look at that. The 7 branches in the mandala offering is contained in pages 52 to 72. So those 20 pages of the Wish-Fulfilling Golden Sun, thank you, she's showing us the pages, will take you, reiterate about a little bit more detail from Lama Zopa Rinpoche about the 7-limb prayer and the mandala offering. Like that. And there's the Wish-Fulfilling Golden Sun. Like that. So if you'd like, you could read up on those sections, and again, so I think that's pretty clear right now. Just some suggestions. Okay. So we're going to close and dedicate whatever positive energy. I'm going to share my screen with some dedications that Rinpoche has suggested for COVID. And some of these are contained in our normal books, but I'm just going to bring a couple dedications in. Can people see that on my screen? Let me share that. How's that? Let me know if you can't see it. And we're going to dedicate whatever positive energy we've created from this time together. I'd like to invest it again in our being able to really start to create these practices that will be rich and consistent, so that it will lead us quickly to enlightenment, so we can be of the most benefit to all living beings. I'd like to dedicate to all of those with COVID who have recently died, and other beings who have died from other things, like Rich Cairns. May they immediately take a good rebirth to become a Buddha to benefit all. And also to Pythagoras, who is a man, my friend's brother in Brazil. She runs our Rio Center. She's a nun, and her brother is in the hospital on a respirator now with COVID. So I'd like to pray for him, Pythagoras, and all the other beings ill with body and mind. May they be healed instantly, and may this pandemic be finished on the planet quickly. May everybody have access to the vaccine if they want it, and not be ill anymore. And yeah, and for the long lives of our precious teachers. Janju Senjo Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ge Gyurchig, Ke Panyam Pa Me Pa Yi, Gone Gondu Belwarjon. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all the sicknesses, without exception, of transmigratory beings never occur again. I would like to seal this with emptiness, which Rinpoche says is the most important dedication. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. Any understanding you have of emptiness, just reflect for a moment. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. And for the long lives of our precious teachers, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. So those are standard dedications you could make at the conclusion of your practice, just to show you some of those like that. They're available online as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, Thupten Norbeling, and for the great flourishing of Thupten Norbeling and all of our practices. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next week, and please be well.